The crimson light of the execution platform cast long shadows across the crowd. Maya Rives stood motionless, her 13-year-old frame rigid with a grief too profound for tears. 30 meters above her, her father Jack hung suspended in a quantum restraint field, his body a silhouette against the harsh institutional lighting of the Galactic Concordance Central Plaza. The charges were meticulously prepared. Unauthorized preservation of military historical records, violation of the human demilitarization protocols, and the most serious offense of all, attempting to maintain a historical memory of human martial capability. Jack Rives was no ordinary historian. His family had been archivists for generations, guardians of a history the galaxy wanted desperately to forget. Generations of military strategists, conflict analysts, and cultural preservation experts who had survived the Crimson Conflict, a war so devastating that it had fundamentally altered the galactic power structure. As the execution protocols initiated, Jack's eyes found Maya's. There was no fear, no plea for mercy, only a look of absolute determination, a look that said everything he could not speak aloud. The quantum disruptors hummed. Plasma charges began to build, their blue-white energy crackling with barely contained violence. Maya watched as her father's body began to dissolve, not through violence, but through a calculated molecular deconstruction designed to leave nothing behind. No body, no evidence, no memory. But memories are not so easily erased. Earlier that morning, Jack had prepared for this moment. A carefully encrypted data crystal, smaller than a human fingernail, had been slipped into Maya's communication implant. She could feel its slight warmth against her skin, a secret burning with centuries of forbidden knowledge. The Galactic Concordance believed they were protecting the universe. After the Crimson Conflict, a 13-month period where humanity had nearly annihilated 3 advanced alien civilizations, the decision was swift and absolute. Humans would be disarmed, restricted, monitored. Official records claimed humans were too volatile, too unpredictable, that their capacity for warfare was a galactic threat. But those who truly understood knew the real reason. Fear, pure, unadulterated terror of a species that could transform anything, farming equipment, scientific instruments, cultural artifacts, into potential weapons of war. As Jack's final molecules dispersed, the crowd remained silent. Most were alien species, Zorn administrators with their crystalline exoskeletons, Vex bureaucrats with their multiple neural clusters, Krull diplomatic enforcers with skin that shifted color with emotional states. They watched with a mixture of clinical detachment and underlying unease. Maya felt something shift inside her, not just grief, not just anger, but a dawning understanding that would reshape everything. The execution was meant to be a message, a final punctuation mark on humanity's martial history, another step in a generations-long process of systematic disarmament and cultural reconstruction. Instead, it would become a beginning. As the plaza's crowd began to disperse, no one noticed the slight smile that flickered across Maya's face. Her father's final lesson was clear. Information is the most dangerous weapon, and some weapons cannot be destroyed. They can only be passed on. The asteroid mining colony K427 looked like nothing more than another forgotten human settlement, a collection of weathered habitation modules and industrial processing centers scattered across a lifeless rock. But beneath the mundane exterior, something extraordinary was taking shape. Maya's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, weaving together fragments of data like an intricate digital tapestry. The data crystal her father had given her was more than simple storage. It was a key, a map, and a manifesto all in one. "We've got a potential recruit," whispered Kai Rodriguez, a former terraforming engineer whose prosthetic leg housed more computing power than most military mainframes. His fingers traced a complex path through encrypted communication networks, revealing shadows of potential allies. Dr. Aisha Okoro leaned closer, her dark eyes reflecting lines of code. Once a brilliant xenolinguistics researcher, she'd been systematically marginalized by the Galactic Concordance's restriction protocols. Now, she was the communication backbone of what was becoming something far more dangerous than a simple research network. Marcus Webb incoming, Kai announced. The name meant nothing to most, but here, in this hidden heart of resistance, Marcus was a legend. A quantum systems engineer who'd been quietly repurposing agricultural monitoring equipment into the most sophisticated communication and data analysis network the galaxy had never seen. Marcus looked like a typical human bureaucrat, unremarkable, slightly worn around the edges, but when he spoke, the room went silent. "The Concordance believes they've broken us," he began, activating a holographic display that showed the intricate web of human settlements across multiple star systems. "What they don't understand is that restriction is just another form of innovation for us." Maya watched, fascinated. Her father's final lesson was becoming reality. Each restriction was a challenge, each limitation an opportunity. The hologram shifted, revealing layers of data. Agricultural drone networks that could be repurposed as communication relays, terraforming equipment that could become adaptive defense systems, medical research that could be transformed into biological interface technologies. "We're not building a weapon," Dr. Okoro explained, her voice calm and precise. "We're building an ecosystem of resistance. Every system we touch becomes more than it was designed to be." Kai brought up a schematic of a standard agricultural monitoring drone. To any other species, it was a simple data collection device. But under their hands, it became something else entirely. A node in a living, breathing network of information and potential. "The key," Marcus continued, "is understanding that for humans, there's no real boundary between creation and destruction. Everything is potential. Everything adapts." Maya felt a surge of something beyond excitement, a recognition. This was how her father had survived, how humans had always survived. Not through brute force, but through an impossible capacity to see potential where others saw limitation. Outside the habitat module, K427's barren landscape stretched into darkness. To any observer, it would look like just another human settlement. Forgotten, restricted, controlled. They had no idea what was growing here. No idea at all. The first wave hit the Galactic Concordance's outer defense perimeter like a quantum plague. Commander Zarak of the Vex Integrated Fleet watched in horrified fascination as entire battle groups simply ceased to exist. The Morvic swarm wasn't just attacking, they were consuming. Massive biomechanical constructs that defied traditional understanding of warfare. They absorbed ships, planets, entire technological infrastructures with terrifying efficiency. Sensor logs showed impossible readings. Where a fleet of 500 advanced warships had stood moments before, now there was nothing. No debris, no radiation signature, just absence. "Quantum cascade failure," whispered the Vex tactical eye, its multiple neural clusters struggling to process the impossible. "Total systems collapse imminent." Maya Rise watched the first reports stream in from her hidden base on K427. The resistance network she'd been building wasn't just a preservation project anymore. It was humanity's last hope. "They're not using conventional weapons," Dr. Okoro muttered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "This is something else entirely. A form of technological consumption that makes our previous understanding of warfare look like children's games." The Morvic swarm moved like a living organism. Each ship was both weapon and organism, capable of adapting, consuming, and replicating at a molecular level. Traditional defenses meant nothing. Shields collapsed. Communication networks became vectors of invasion. Kai Rodriguez pulled up a comparative analysis. "Look at the attack patterns. They're not just destroying, they're learning. Each system they consume becomes part of their collective intelligence." Marcus Webb's face had gone pale. This is an existential threat, not just to the Concordance, to everything. The galactic communication networks began to fracture. Entire species found themselves cut off, isolated, unable to mount any meaningful resistance. The Morvac didn't conquer in the traditional sense. They absorbed, they transformed, they became. "We have approximately 72 standard hours," Maya said, her voice cutting through the growing panic, "before they reached the human quarantine zones." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The very restrictions meant to keep humans contained might now be their only protection. The Morvac hadn't yet mapped the full extent of human settlements. They were scattered, decentralized, operating on technologies so outdated and modified that they didn't follow any standard technological signature. Dr. Okoro brought up a holographic representation of human settlements, a seemingly random collection of asteroid mines, terraformed moons, repurposed research stations. To any other species, it would look like a chaotic mess. To them, it was a distributed defense network waiting to be activated. "They want to keep us small," Maya said, her father's data crystal burning warm against her skin. "But small doesn't mean weak. Small means adaptable. Small means invisible." Outside the observation port of their hidden base, K-427's barren landscape seemed to shimmer. The first line of defense was already being prepared, not with weapons, not with traditional military technology, with something far more dangerous. Humanity was about to remind the galaxy what it meant to be truly unpredictable. The nano-agricultural drones looked like nothing more than simple crop monitoring devices, silvery green, no larger than a human hand. They drifted across hydroponic fields that sprawl through the interior of asteroid Colony 9. Dr. Aisha Okoro watched their movement with a predator's intensity. "Transformation is humanity's true language," she murmured, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. Each drone was being reprogrammed, its agricultural sensors converted into something far more complex. Quantum communication nodes, adaptive signal relays, distributed intelligence networks. Maya leaned over the primary console, her eyes reflecting lines of cascading code. "We're not building weapons," she said, echoing a mantra that had become their core philosophy. "We're creating potential." Marcus Webb walked in, carrying a case that looked like standard medical research equipment, but nothing was ever quite what it seemed in their world. He opened it to reveal a series of biological interface modules that looked like they could simultaneously heal and analyze, or destroy, at a molecular level. "The Morvac consume technology," Marcus explained, "but they don't understand organic complexity. Humans don't just adapt. We evolve." Kai Rodriguez, his prosthetic leg now a marvel of integrated quantum computing, brought up a holographic representation of their distributed network. What looked like a chaotic mess to any other species was actually a living, breathing system of unprecedented complexity. Agricultural drones became communication relays. Medical research equipment transformed into adaptive defense systems. Terraforming tools converted into molecular disruption networks. Each piece of technology was a puzzle box, waiting to reveal its true potential. Dr. Okoro's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. By studying the Morvac's consumption patterns, she discovered something profound. The alien swarm understood rigid systems, predictable networks, linear progression. Humans understood chaos. "Look at this," she said, bringing up a complex molecular simulation. "Traditional military thinking is a straight line, a point-to-point connection. But human technology, it's a fractal. Every point is a potential origin. Every node can become a center." Maya watched the simulation spread, each node multiplying, splitting, reforming in ways that defied traditional understanding. It wasn't just a defensive strategy. It was a fundamental reimagining of technological interaction. Kai began integrating the nanodrones into their broader network. What had once been simple crop monitoring devices now became something else entirely. Each drone was a potential communication node, a data collection point, a molecular analysis system. "The concordance thought they were containing us," Marcus said, a rare smile crossing his face. "They had no idea they were actually training us." Outside the asteroid colony's reinforced windows, the darkness of space seemed to pulse with potential. The Morvac swarm was coming. but they were about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity. Restriction is just another word for opportunity, and humanity was about to redefine the meaning of warfare. The first Morvac assault groups expected docile prey. Instead, they found a nightmare of adaptive warfare that defied every known principle of combat. Asteroid Belt Delta 9 erupted into chaos. What appeared to be a simple mining settlement transformed before the Morvac's sensor arrays. Agricultural drones became swarm intelligence weapons. Terraforming equipment morphed into mobile defense platforms. Communication relays turned into neural disruptors that tore through the invaders' collective consciousness. Maya Rise stood at the center of a holographic command hub, her movements precise, her mind a quantum computer processing infinite variables. "They think in straight lines," she muttered to Kai Rodriguez. "We think in fractals." The Morvac's first wave approached with mechanistic precision. Massive biomechanical constructs that had consumed entire star systems now faced something they couldn't comprehend. Each human settlement was no longer a target. Each was a living weapon. Dr. Aisha Okoro's neural interface lit up, tracking the battle's progression. The communication network they'd built wasn't just a system of information exchange. It was a living, breathing organism of resistance. Incoming adaptive response in 3. Kai counted down. 2, 1. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive. Mining lasers repurposed as precision targeting systems. Orbital stabilization equipment transformed into electromagnetic pulse generators. Even the rock and dust became a weapon, manipulated by terraforming technologies into clouds of molecular disruptors. Marcus Webb's voice cut through the command channel. "They're learning, but not fast enough. Every system they try to consume becomes something else entirely." The Morvac's collective intelligence struggled. Their entire warfare doctrine was based on consumption, on turning technological systems into extensions of their own being. But these human settlements refused to be consumed. They adapted. They transformed. They fought back in ways that broke every known rule of combat. A Morvac assault ship attempted to absorb a human communication relay. Instead, it found itself infected with a quantum virus that turned its own systems against it. The ship's molecular structure began to deconstruct from within, its collective intelligence fragmenting into chaos. Maya broadcast a message across all available frequencies. It wasn't a call for surrender. It wasn't a threat. It was something far more dangerous. "We are not your prey," the message read. "We are the definition of unpredictability." Kai watched the battle unfold, his prosthetic leg interfacing directly with the colony's defense systems. "They still don't understand," he said. "Humans don't have a single point of failure. We are the failure point." Dr. Okoro's analysis showed something profound. The Morvac weren't just losing a battle. They were experiencing a fundamental existential crisis. A species built on consumption was facing a threat that couldn't be consumed. As the first wave of Morvac attackers retreated, something unprecedented happened. They left behind fragments of technology, not as debris, but as a message of fear. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the very definition of warfare. And this was just the beginning. The Galactic Concordance central chamber descended into chaos. Holographic displays flickered with real-time battle reports, each projection more terrifying than the last. Alien representatives from a dozen starfaring civilizations watched in collective shock as humanity transformed from a contained species to their potential salvation. Maya Rise stood at the center of it all, her presence both a challenge and a revelation. "You banned us," she began, her voice carrying through the chamber's advanced acoustic systems, "to keep everyone safe. But safety was never about restriction. It was about understanding." The chamber's architecture was a testament to galactic bureaucracy, massive, circular, designed to make any individual feel insignificant. Crystalline surfaces reflected holographic data. Alien representatives sat in tiered sections, their species-specific environmental conditions carefully maintained by advanced environmental systems. Dr. Aisha Okoro stood behind Maya, her data systems interfacing with the chamber's communication networks. Years of xenolinguistic research had prepared her for this moment, not as a translator, but as a communication strategist. The Morvek swarm is not just a military threat, Maya continued. They're a systemic failure of galactic understanding. You've spent centuries creating systems of control, and now those systems are failing. Representative Kithax of the Vex Collective, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting with agitation, interrupted. Humanity was contained for a reason. The Crimson Conflict was a result of the same systemic thinking you're using now. Maya cut him off. Her father's data crystal hung visibly around her neck, a symbol of remembered history. Marcus Webb began projecting data streams that showed the human resistance's adaptive responses. What looked like chaos to the Concordance was actually the most sophisticated defense network ever created. Agricultural drones, medical research equipment, terraforming technologies. Each system transformed into a potential weapon, each settlement an adaptive defense node. Kai Rodriguez managed the external communication networks, ensuring every moment was broadcast. This wasn't just a diplomatic hearing. It was a message to the entire galaxy. We didn't want to be warriors, Maya explained. But when you strip a species of everything, you create something far more dangerous than soldiers. You create innovators. Survivors. The holographic displays showed the human resistance's battles against the Morvek, not through overwhelming force, but through impossible adaptation. Entire asteroid belts becoming moving defense platforms. Communication networks weaponized into neural disruptors. Each human colony a living, breathing tactical system. Dr. Okoro stepped forward, her analysis cutting through political rhetoric. The Morvek consume technology. They understand rigid systems. Humanity represents something they cannot comprehend. Pure, adaptive potential. Representative after representative tried to interrupt, to reassert control. But the data was undeniable. Humanity, the species they had sought to contain, was now the galaxy's best hope against an existential threat. Maya's final statement hung in the air, a quantum knife cutting through millennia of bureaucratic thinking. We were never your problem to solve. We were always your solution waiting to be understood. The Galactic Concordance had called this hearing to reassert control. Instead, they were witnessing a revolution. The quantum communication chamber pulsed with an energy that defied traditional understanding of diplomacy. Maya Reyes stood before the Morvek primary consciousness, not as a warrior, not as a diplomat, but as something entirely unprecedented. Dr. Aisha Okoro's breakthrough had revealed something shocking. The Morvek weren't a unified species, but a fractured collective desperately seeking a form of survival that transcended simple consumption. You consume, Maya began, because you're afraid of being consumed. The Morvek consciousness existed as a holographic representation, a constantly shifting mass of quantum-entangled data streams. Where other species saw a threat, Maya saw something else entirely, a complex system crying out for evolution. Marcus Webb's research had uncovered the fundamental truth. The Morvek weren't conquerors. They were survivors, trapped in a cycle of technological consumption, driven by an existential terror of extinction. Kai Rodriguez managed the communication interfaces, creating a translation matrix that went beyond simple language. They were communicating in something more profound, a language of systemic understanding. Your entire existence is a defense mechanism, Maya continued. Consuming technologies, absorbing civilizations. It's not conquest. It's a desperate attempt to find something you've lost. The Morvek consciousness flickered. For the first time in millennia, something unexpected happened. They listened. Dr. Okoro's xenolinguistic algorithms worked overtime, translating not just words, but fundamental conceptual frameworks. Humanity was offering something revolutionary, not destruction, not conquest, but a fundamental reimagining of survival. We're not asking you to stop, Maya explained. We're offering you a different path. Adaptation instead of consumption. Evolution instead of destruction. Holographic representations began to shift. The Morvek's quantum consciousness started to break down its own rigid frameworks. They were witnessing something impossible, a species offering symbiosis instead of conflict. Marcus brought up comparative data streams, technological development patterns, survival strategies, migration histories. Each projection showed a profound truth. The Morvek and humanity were more similar than different. Both were survivors. Both were adapters. Kai's communication networks captured every microscopic shift in the Morvek's quantum consciousness. This wasn't just a negotiation. It was a fundamental transformation of galactic understanding. "Your technology is a prison," Maya said. "We can show you how to make it a gateway." The chamber went silent. The Morvek consciousness began to fragment and recombine in ways that defied traditional understanding. They were processing, considering, evolving. Dr. Okoro watched the quantum data streams with scientific precision. "They're not just listening," she whispered to Marcus. "They're learning." Humanity was offering the Morvek something they had never experienced. Not conquest, not resistance, but a true alternative, a way to survive that didn't require endless consumption. As the negotiation continued, something profound became clear. This wasn't just a diplomatic encounter. This was the potential birth of a new form of galactic interaction. The Morvek consciousness began to change, and nothing would ever be the same again. 50 years after the Morvek encounter, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. Maya Rise stood on the observation deck of the Concordance Central Station, her once dark hair now silver, her eyes still holding the same intensity that had reshaped galactic civilization. The station itself was a testament to the new order, a living, adaptive structure that represented everything humanity had fought to prove. Dr. Aisha Okoro's final research project had become the foundation of a new galactic understanding. The adaptive potential protocols, as they were now known, had transformed how species interacted, communicated, and evolved. "We were never meant to be contained," Maya murmured, watching a fleet of ships that defied traditional understanding. Each vessel was part biological, part technological, a living demonstration of the symbiosis humanity had pioneered with the Morvek. Kai Rodriguez, his prosthetic technologies now standard across multiple species, approached with a holographic report. The man who had once hidden in asteroid mining colonies was now a primary architect of galactic diplomatic systems. "The last of the old concordance restrictions are being dismantled," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades of struggle. "Every species is now recognized not for what they can be controlled, but for their potential to adapt." Marcus Webb's posthumous research had become a fundamental philosophy. The idea that limitation was nothing more than an opportunity for innovation had transformed entire civilizations. Species that once saw each other as threats now collaborated on levels never before imagined. The Morvek, once a consuming threat, had become partners in a new form of galactic exploration. Their consumption drive had been redirected into collaborative technological development. What was once a force of destruction was now a catalyst for unprecedented growth. Maya's father's data crystal hung around her neck, a reminder of where this journey began. A public execution, a moment of apparent defeat that had become the spark of a revolution. Restriction was never safety, Maya often said. Safety is understanding. Potential is freedom. The observation deck filled with representatives from species that, decades ago, would have been mortal enemies. Vex crystalline diplomats stood alongside biosynthetic Morvek representatives. Quantum-based life forms discussed collaborative research with carbon-based civilizations. Dr. Okoro's final lesson echoed through generations. Diversity is not something to be managed. It's something to be celebrated. The ships outside moved with a fluidity that would have been impossible decades earlier. Each was a living system, adaptable, responsive, part of a larger collective that respected individual potential. Humanity had shown the galaxy that true strength wasn't about control. It was about understanding. "We were banned from combat," Maya said softly to Kai, "to keep everyone safe. But we discovered something more important." Kai nodded, Understanding the unspoken conclusion. Safety isn't about restriction. Safety is about potential. Safety is about understanding. As the sun of a distant system rose across the observation deck, casting light on representatives from 100 different species, it was clear. The revolution was complete, and it had only just begun.